Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 153rd episode of Together for Education webinars brought to you by Notebook. Over 20 months ago, in April 2020, when the pandemic had just set in and schools had closed down, we at Notebook felt it was our duty to set up a platform for educators to connect meaningfully on discussing problems that they were facing with the rising need of digital education and online learning and arrive at common solutions. Today, 153 episodes later, this platform has grown much bigger than we could have ever anticipated, thanks to your love and support. We have discussed extremely curricular topics here like digital learning, NEP and assessments, extracurricular topics like sports and theatre, topics like school finance, and even evolved topics like mental health. Given the wide spectrum of socioeconomic conditions prevailing globally, education does not always present itself with the same ease of access everywhere. Gender disparity, prevalent geopolitical strife, governing structures, geographical disturbances, and a host of other issues present obstacles in front of both educator and student. Within our country itself, equitable distribution of education is something we are still working towards. Today, therefore, we look at some of these barriers to education and explore the various strategies that can be adopted in overcoming them. The first speaker on this topic is Mr. Philip Barrett. Mr. Barrett retired as the Deputy Headmaster from the illustrious Doon School in Dehradun after 44 years of serving in education across various institutions. Mr. Barrett served the Doon School as Housemaster, Head of Department, Dean of Activities, Dean of Student Welfare, Deputy Headmaster, Second Master, and Acting Headmaster with great distinction. He also carried out a visioning exercise for the Doon School in the year 2011 through an in-depth study of a number of British public schools and various schools in the US. Mr. Burrett qualified as a leadership trainer at Wellington College, UK in the year 2000. He is also an athlete, an adventurer, and a naturalist, and we at Notebook are privileged to have Mr. Burrett as our senior advisor. Sir, thank you so much for sparing the time to be here today. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Rubayu, for that introduction. And a very good evening to everyone at Notebook, including you, Achin, and everyone else, as well as our esteemed panelists who have joined us today, and the guests who have tuned in. I was looking at this topic, and I read that the Right to Education Act 2009, Article 21A of the Constitution, states that the state will provide a free and compulsory education to all up to the age of 40. And then comes along the new education policy, and this was altered to include ages 3 to 18, which is even better. And yet, even though statistics show that we have almost 1.5 million schools, and we educate more than 250 million children, almost 6.1 million children are out of school in 2014, and 32 million have not attended any school. Approximately 20 million have not attended even preschool. And even when children do get to some sort of school, there's a very high rate of dropout, mainly because of the low value of education. Almost 29% drop out before completing even elementary school. 50% of adolescents do not finish their secondary school. So while on the one front, the figures of school-going children reads very impressively, there's always a flip side to the story, and there's still a very, very long way to go. The question I ask is whether the current rate of growth of schools can keep pace with our population. Now, there are many reasons, and even when the NEP asks that the school-going age should be 3, there are so many problems. The Anganwadi workers, for example, are not trained and equipped to handle this age. Now, in all my years, I have come to believe that unless there is some really terrible problems at home, and home is a living hell for many children, children do not like to come to school. They prefer to stay at home. And when children are introduced to school, I think it should be done in a very thoughtful and gradual manner. Some schools even have a mother and taught 1-hour session where the mother accompanies the child, and very gradually children get used to school, because as I said, children love to be at home unless the home front is terrible. Now, home is a safe haven where mom and dad are around. And as I said, children need to be prepared for schools. Now, even when they get to school, if the teachers are caring and the school has a good curriculum in place, keeps them busy, most children like school. Most children begin to like school. Unless, of course, there are terrible things happening in school, in which case the child doesn't like school. Now, children stay away from school for two real big reasons. As I said, school is a terrible place. There's a lot of bullying, name calling, or teachers are cruel and insensitive. And the other reason is that parents force them to stay away from school. Now, some parents very strongly believe that homeschooling is the way forward. I know many people, many friends of mine who have opted to homeschool their children, and their children have done very well and are doing very well. There are all over the world homeschooling options and organizations. Of course, it's very costly. These parents do not want the value systems that sometimes children pick up at school. So they opt for homeschooling and they don't send their children to school. Now, another factor, especially in rural schools, is the inequality in the standard of education provided. The difference between a good top-rated school in a metro and a hole-in-the-wall classroom is vast, is a huge difference. And even the poorest of us can see the difference. Everyone wants the best that they can afford. But sadly, some parents just begin to feel that if given the option of sending their wards to the school that is available, it is better to keep their children at home. They would choose, keeping them at home. Often, a village may have a primary and a secondary school, but there's nothing beyond that. And the government college is about 40 to 50 kilometers away and offers a very poor, advanced education. The lecturers are absent half the time. News gets around. And so these children, even though they might be a class 8 or a class 10 pass, their thinking is, what's the future? Where do we go from here? The college is of no value. And even if they do get to college and get a degree, which employer is going to take a look at that dubious degree from some college that is not even recognized? The government loves to dish out statistics on how many schools have been opened, number of kids in school, number of free meals, and other perks and carrots that they dangle before children. But the quality of the education is poor. Teacher absentee is high. Teaching is incompetent. And teachers and children believe that they're not being taught. And no amount of freebies or bribery or free meals is going to get those children back in the classroom if they deep down don't believe that they are being educated. Illiterate parents sometimes who are steeped in poverty, who are unemployed, believe that their children can add more income to their families. So they don't send their children to school, especially in agrarian states where the sex ratio is very, very skewed. They will not send their children to school because every hand counts in the threshing season, in the harvest season, in the growing season, where crops are concerned. The other thing is child labor. We have huge amounts of children that are still almost 10 million children in this country who work in match factories, carpet factories, lock factories, glass and brass factories, lead mining, quarrying. And the saddest sight is to see these children sitting on rubbish heaps and stone piles while their parents build houses and build high-rise buildings. They have no schools to go to. And all they can learn from their parents is how to build houses. And so for them, it's more important to actually learn like an apprenticeship on what their parents do, because school is not going to teach them this. Now, the other thing is that, demand far outstrips supply. And there are many more students clamoring for schools than there are schools. And so therefore, these kids are not going to get into school, especially for a minority group. You're left out. Then, as in my state, there are large distances between schools and homes, up on the mountains, across torrential rivers, where there's landslides, dark forests, often wild animals. In Uttarakhand, where I have traveled a lot, children often have to get into a very rickety little trolley, which is then hoisted across a cable, across a highly dangerous river. And the children get into it. 4 small kids can get into these, metal boxes, and they pull themselves across these rivers, highly dangerous. So sometimes after a couple of years of this schooling, they drop out. Sometimes uninspiring schools, cruel and emotionally unsound teachers. I have seen even in good schools, like the school I worked in. I've had the privilege of working in good schools. Even their children run away. We had some truancy, boys trying to jump the wall, and then we looked into it. So no matter what type of school you go to, if there's a teacher or teachers who are making it difficult for children, they will not stay in school. Then there's also the question of special needs children. Our schools are not very inclusive. They're getting there, but to be inclusive, a school needs to have a trained staff that can handle these children with learning disabilities, physical, I wouldn't say the word disabilities, but differently abled children. They can't be handled by teachers. Most good schools claim to take a few special needs children, but I think again it's ticking the boxes rather than actually wanting to help these children. So where do these children go? And there's very few specialized schools for these children, and that again in the metros. Girl children suffer more than anyone else, because if a family has the money or the means to educate 3 children, 2 children, it will be the boys who will be educated. The girls stay at home, often looking after younger siblings, cooking as the parents are working, again, maybe construction workers. So the girl child suffers. And of course, sometimes parents just don't have the money to send all the children to school. And so the youngest stays at home, the girls stay at home. Now, the logic in many Indian villages is that education and the curriculum will not get them jobs. They will not get the jobs they want. The schooling is really something they do just to get them off their hands for a few hours. But what they need is trades. They need to learn a trade like carpentry, electricals, cooking. They join the army. If they know how to weld, or even go into motor mechanics and open a small a scooter repair shop, it is more lucrative for these children to get into technical institutes so that they can learn a trade rather than waste their lives in a school, after which there's no jobs. Then, of course, there are dropouts due to indiscipline, drugs, and children who get into addictions. These children are either not allowed to get to school or they drop out of school. They get ill. Now, the pandemic has aggravated the problem in a way. Lots of children have dropped out because of no access to the internet, while others have come to believe that online education is just fine. And they do not see much value in sending their children to school even after the pandemic is over. The uncertain future of the pandemic has led many people to believe that the future of education is online. Now, so, there's also the issue of curfews and riots and war zones, and in places where there's, political unrest, like the Northeast or J&K, you'll find children don't go to school because it's unsafe. They keep away from schools. Now, if the future of education is to be in the area of digital learning and teaching, and I think it must be, any barrier that obstructs schools from going the way of the digital learning, like robotics and coding, online learning, assessments, and is a barrier to learning. A lack of internet coverage, gadgets, cell phones, and teacher training. This can be a big barrier for the future. So any barrier to digital learning is going to be a barrier to education. the discrepancy in learning during the lockdown of 2021 has thrown up and exposed that not everyone has benefited equally from online schooling. As I said earlier, the metro children have had a far better deal than children of, in smaller towns and rural areas. And I think that the lack of digital infrastructure has exposed this. One big area that governments and NGOs must really look into, closing the gap is that everyone has to have access to better online learning, which again means teacher training. Teachers need to train how to use online methodology. And if this is not addressed, it will show up years from now. Again, I would like to end by saying that another big barrier to real learning is the teacher's fixed mindset. A closed mindset with a poor attitude and an unwillingness to change with the times is the worst thing in an education institution. A poor teacher, a teacher with a poor attitude can cripple a school and make learning for children a drudgery. On the other hand, even a less qualified teacher with a growth mindset and a willingness to grow can give a child the best gift that he can be looking for. So there are so many barriers to learning, and I hope I have covered some of the important ones. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I look forward to the views of the panelists and to Achin. Thank you, and over to you, Shubai.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for that wonderful introduction to this quite vast topic. You quite beautifully listed out the various reasons and the obstacles that create barriers to our children learning in schools. And especially the way you laid out the important role that a teacher plays in ensuring that the student gets the right kind of education was so very important. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, sir.
Thank you, Shubai.
Our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is Achin Bhattacharyya. Achin is the founder and CEO at Notebook. A chartered accountant by training, Achin was a director at Deloitte prior to starting Notebook. He has worked in India and abroad in various senior capacities in GE, PwC, KPMG, and Deloitte. Achin is a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of England and Wales, a fellow of the ICI, and a member of CPA Australia and CPA Ireland. He is also the recipient of the prestigious Indian Achievers Award. An avid reader and passionate traveler, Achin has keen interests in economics, history, literature, and philosophy. He is a regular speaker at various forums and chambers of commerce, and also contributes articles to numerous publications regularly. He is also on the board of some of the most renowned corporates and contributes significantly to their brand strategies. Achin, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Shubha, am I audible?
Yeah, Achin, loud and clear.
I once again welcome all of you to today's session on a very vast topic. So when we chose this particular topic for our Together for Education webinar, we were very clear that this topic is so vast that maybe even a week-long seminar is not enough to cover all aspects or all facets of this. The whole objective is to start thought-provoking discussions, at least to start thinking about various aspects of this topic, and of course, hear from esteemed senior educators in this forum. So I'll try to cover some aspects. I think Burrett gave us a wonderful overview. Of course, not only starting with the numbers, but from, I'll say, Sir covered quite a vast array, including the practical challenges. So I'll take a more holistic perspective and try to look at learning barriers. Apart from that, I also try to cover the role of technology in overcoming these barriers. the kind of new challenges that the pandemic has brought in, and of course, a little bit about what's happening around the world on this. So learning, the way I look at it, is a complex process. And I'm sure, senior educators in this forum would agree with me that it involves many sub-processes. And learning and education are quite interrelated. And the way I look at it, education is an interdisciplinary subject in itself. But in spite of the fact that an institution, any eminent institution, usually takes into account all the necessary parameters to make the education process a success. I'm sure educators put their heart and soul into it. Many of them are so passionate about it. But there are situations where we see various challenges. And at times, we may not get the desired outcome. In this connection, we are always reminded of certain known and unknown barriers that act as hurdles or obstacles on the way to education. So such barriers to learning are also very common, and we can come across most of this in our day-to-day teaching activities as well. Of course, situations do vary. It has to. Now, barriers among students may include those factors that can, one type, of course, factors that can easily be minimized or removed. But in certain cases, the climate is more steep for various reasons. Of course, when there's a will, then there is a way. It's not impossible, but the climb is very uphill at times. Now, if you look at things from a learner's perspective, a learner has many responsibilities that must be balanced against the learning needs. And here I'm not only discussing about things from a K-12 perspective, but from education as a whole. Now, because of these responsibilities, he or she may have barriers against participating in learning. Now, some of them very common, right? For instance, and again, as I told you that I'm not discussing about things from a K-12 perspective, but from education as a whole, including university or colleges. So of course, lack of time, lack of confidence, lack of information about opportunities to learn, lack of motivation. If the learner does not see the need for the change in behavior or knowledge, it is likely that a barrier exists because the learner is not even aware of the challenge. Likewise, if the learner cannot apply learning to his or her past experiential or educational situations, the teacher will have to overcome the barriers of learning. So there is no denying the fact that education is an important institution of socialization. But many critics see formal education as biased in favor of the status quo. So I was going through an article wherein Gary Gardner, he made a very important remark. Whether education, and his opinion was that whether education today is capable of standing outside of society and critiquing it in a way that creates a worldview grounded in sustainability. Now, if you look at general barriers to participating in education, of course, we can categorize them into few broad buckets. Of course, educators distinguish between perceived barriers and actual barriers. For instance, if you look at adult learning, Burrett was referring to children out of school, people who have never got an opportunity to go to school. But as all of us would agree that learning, honestly speaking, should not be age bound. So if you look at adult learning, for instance, and try to distinguish between perceived and actual barriers. So of course, one is institutional barriers, practice that discourage adults. You're too late. Why start now? Situational barriers arising from one's life situation, dispositional barriers, attitudes and perceptions about himself or herself as a learner. I believe learning barriers have roots. These don't appear abruptly. This may start affecting from early stages and continue throughout the educational process. Thus, a psychosocial analysis of such barriers may enable an instructor or educationalist to go deep into any such educational phenomena and be ready to cope with it. The other aspect which is very, very important is motivation. Sir also briefly touched on this aspect. Motivation, the way I look at it, is also, I think the single most important factor in raising the tendency towards individual learning. It is one of the basic conditions which achieve the goal of learning process. Learning ways of thinking, the formation of attitudes and values, collection of information and problem solving. But nothing can happen without motivation. The fact that without any motivation, nothing can be done properly, I think is absolutely true. And considering the fact that teaching is a profession, it requires genuinely motivated and appropriately dedicated teachers to carry out the teaching tasks and lead the learners to the right path of success. Now, as rightly pointed out time and again in this forum by senior educators, senior principals, and many of them have pointed this out, and we could not agree more that there are two types of teachers: teachers by chance and teachers by choice. Now, if a teacher in the teaching profession, if a teacher is in the teaching profession just by chance, he won't be able to serve the learner community as he should. Now, it is simply because of the reason that to him, teaching is just a means of earning a livelihood, an occupation. Other aspect is, so one is of course motivation, second is faulty transfer of learning. Now, if one is not able to apply learning to solve problems or to change behavior, there's a fair chance of the presence of another type of learning barrier. So there's a model in the year 1999, there was a research by Parker and Barrett. And there's a model called Prochaska's trans-theoretical model of change in adult behavior as a framework for needs. So any framework needs assessment, course design, evaluation. That helps explain why learning initiatives do not always change performance. We are taking great initiative, but there's no change in performance. So it's a gradual 5-step process. If the learners are not ready to change, or if the offering does not match their state of readiness, they will not be able to transfer their learning to affect change in their behavior. In addition, program content might focus on irrelevant knowledge instead of needed skills, practical skills, day-to-day skills, or focus on attitude change, which is so important, especially for participants who are confronting, various other barriers at an individual level, first generation learners, economically challenged. To them, learning has to have that practical utility. It has been noticed that problems like transfer of learning are not only faced by younger students, that even in adult learning, we see this time and again. At times, educators may forget to help children make connection between their new learning and what they already know. That's a very, very important thing. So it becomes the teacher's responsibility to diagnose such problems and extend help to overcome if possible. But then educator is only one stakeholder in the entire ecosystem. Parents also have a huge responsibility, no doubt about it. The other is, if you look at things from a global perspective, at times the curriculum also plays a huge role. Various countries around the world, if you see, there's been so much of change, so much of criticism with regard to the kind of target curriculum. Now, curriculum in general and syllabus in particular always plays an inevitable role in the entire process of learning in education system. So it should be designed properly in accordance with the social and national need. And it must be ensured that we are able to utilize our minimum resources to the optimum level in order to ensure that we are able to achieve the desired outcomes. Now, if you look at adult learning, for instance, like we were discussing about it, and look at the kind of potential barriers. At times, family responsibilities, social commitments, lack of time, lack of money, childcare, responsibilities of raising children, no time for, practically no time to upgrade himself or herself. Scheduling problem, conflicting priorities. How do you find out time? Lack of confidence, lack of genuine encouragement. And also, of course, at times having to learn because someone else is telling you to do that, but not interested or genuinely ready. At the same time, if you look at motivation, again, the motivational factors for adult learning are, of course, very different from motivation that a children has. For instance, motivation to maintain or to form social relationships, to meet external expectation. The boss says you have to upgrade a specific skill to keep your job or to get the next promotion. Learn to better serve others, professional advancement. And of course, at times, pure interest. Someone is genuinely interested in a topic, he or she takes the effort to upgrade. And that's the best possible in a happy path. Now, it has been noticed that motivation is perhaps the most important requirement for the achievement of target learning. Of course, other aspects, other barriers, be it professional development of teachers, we all understand that it's how important it is that teachers are continuously able to upgrade their skills. They get all the necessary support that is needed. Considering the fact, the kind of important role that educators play in the society, the best of the lot has to come to teaching. So how do we ensure that we are able to attract and retain the best of the lot? The kind of professional opportunities that teaching as a profession has to offer. The other aspect is handling emotional barriers. Another very, very important aspect. If you look at things from a child's perspective, at times it plays a huge role. Especially what we have seen during pandemic. Children not being able to play, not being able to meet their teachers, not being able to meet their classmates, just looking at a screen whole day and trying to study. At times it's so challenging. Linguistic barriers. Another huge challenge. I think yesterday, I was listening to the Honorable Finance Minister, and I think I saw a very appropriate announcement. Indeed, a step in the right direction. That online content in regional languages be made for all classes and delivered through television. So indeed, very, very good step in the right direction. Language in today's age cannot act as a barrier, especially for first generation learners. We need to instill all the confidence in them. At times, of course, parental attitude also is a barrier. I think as Barrett so rightly mentioned, for first generation learners, at times, they need help, all the necessary hands during harvesting season, etc. Still, I'll say, as a country, I take great pride in it. The kind of focus that Indian parents have towards their children's education is second to none in the world. And I've seen parents who are economically, disadvantaged. I've also seen them putting their entire well-being at stake, the entire funds of the family at stake, just to ensure that their children have a better life. So the kind of importance that we as a country give to education is second to none. Of course, challenges like dropout, also a learning barrier. Now, the other aspect is role of technology. I think technology has a huge role to play. Today, if you practically look at things, we can attend a lecture by a very eminent Harvard professor sitting from our own home. And it's not a recorded lecture, it may be a live lecture. Today, if you look at edX platforms. So never has a generation been so connected and so mobile. So I think we as members of the civil society have a responsibility to educate our children in how to make them, how to ensure that they're able to utilize these resources to the optimum level. Social media, for instance, connects people that we may never meet, and yet lasting bonds and friendships can be forged. So of course, these are ways to overcome barriers. It helps you reach out to the best possible person who can help you. Imagine for a medium like Twitter, for instance, allows us constant snapshots of millions of people, be they celebrities, academics, experts in various fields, trying to know what they're actually thinking on a particular topic, on a particular issue. And we could never imagine something like this 2 decades back. Students no longer need to learn things secondhand. They can go straight to the expert. I think this is the biggest role that technology has played. No dilution. Students can actually directly hear from the horse's mouth. And I think that's a very, very big advantage. Similarly, internet also allows us a whole new world of peer-to-peer assessment, which is so important. As you and your students may look and listen to the wise words of others, and at times, the kind of contribution that you can make, the kind of contribution that educators can also make in order to ensure that children who are not so advantaged are getting the benefit of your wisdom. The other mediums, like for instance, YouTube, a student's voice and an opinion or an idea can so easily be communicated to the rest of the world. And it's just possible. Or an educator taking a class on a particular topic, shooting a lesson and uploading the video. And if you get it right, the entire world will respond. This kind of global feedback is incredible and frankly inspiring. And the power of something like this as a learning tool cannot be underestimated. So technology also makes the things we already do easier. Tools like online documentation, office suites means that writing, for instance, writing a collaborative essay is no longer awkward and messy. Simultaneous collaboration can happen and lead to some fascinating results. So this is a great tool, but imagine that what if the same program allows students to write collaboratively with someone from the other side of the world? How much bigger would the stakes be for students? How much more engaging and exciting it would be for everyone involved? How much more likely would they be never be able to forget this experience or this piece of work? So technology, if used well, can be very inspiring. It can be incredible. It can actually break down boundaries and help us overcome these learning barriers. Leapfrog our journey. The other aspect is, I think, when we're discussing about learning barriers, of course, the role of pandemic definitely comes in, especially after what we have seen during the last 1.5 years. And again, we're discussing things from a global perspective. Educators really rose to the challenge, rose to the occasion, and did a wonderful job and ensured that children don't lose a year. But if you look at things from a more global perspective, research shows that around the world, many young children have fallen behind in reading and simple things like reading and mathematics. But some educators, I was going through some reports, and I'll share 1 or 2 instances. Some educators are worried about stigmatizing an entire generation. Studies continue to show that many young children have struggled to master fundamental reading and maths, as I told you. Now, globally, there's a contemporary debate in education about how and even whether to measure the academic impact of the COVID pandemic on children, and how to describe learning gaps without discouraging students and their families. Studies continue to show that amid the school closure and economic and health hardships that we've all seen, job losses, people losing their loved ones, many young children have missed out on mastering these fundamental skills. I was going through some reports in US, for instance. The Biden administration has told most of the states in US that unlike in last 2 years, they should plan on testing students this year. In part to measure, and this is very important, in part to measure the educational inequities that have been actually amplified by the pandemic. But there are sections which are pushing back against the concept of this learning loss. Many communities are pushing back. And why so? Because they fear that a focus on what's been lost could incite a moral panic that paints an entire generation as broken, and say that, and they believe that a more commonsensical approach is the solution. So of course, there are barriers, there are challenges, but there are solutions. Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore once rightly said, the problem is not how to wipe out all differences, but how to unite with all differences intact. There will be differences. There are bound to be differences. Differences in terms of opportunity, differences in terms of circumstances. But yet, along with that, the best part is that if you look at human spirit, if you look at the strive for excellence, I think there's always hope and optimism. And following his words, I think it gives us tremendous hope and encouragement. So these are a few things that I wanted to share with all of you. These are vast topic, and I think Barrett sir gave us a very wonderful introduction. I'm sure we will get to hear from the very senior and eminent panel that we have here today, their views on this particular topic. I thank all of you for giving me a patient hearing. Over to you, Shubhayu.
Thank you, Achin. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as Achin said, we have a fantastic panel lined up for you. But before we go on to the panel discussion, just a couple of minutes to tell you about Notebook. We at Notebook are an EdTech platform. We create short videos pertaining to the school curriculum. Now, these videos come in handy in two cases. One is when you as an educator are taking a class. You can start with these short videos as a visual introduction to the topic that you're about to teach. Secondly, when students are learning at home, they have access to all of these videos on their personal devices, be it a laptop or a smartphone, which means that they can watch the videos over and over again and get greater visual clarity on what has been taught. Not only that, they also get reminded of what you taught in class the day you had played that particular video. I'm going to play a short showreel of a few of the Notebook videos now before we start our discussion.
Draw any polygon on the floor like shown here. Start walking from point A to B. When you reach B, you will need to turn by the external angle at B to continue walking on BC. Continue the process till you reach back to A. In the process of walking along the polygon, you have taken each external angle turn, which means you have added all the angles.
समास का अर्थ है संक्षेपीकरण, अर्थात किसी लंबे वाक्यांश को छोटा करना. उदाहरण, स्वर्ग को प्राप्त. वाक्यांश के लिए स्वर्ग प्राप्त शब्द का प्रयोग किया जाता है. इस प्रकार हम देखते हैं कि किसी वाक्य को संक्षेप में लिखने से वह काफी प्रभावशाली हो उठता है.
Who are you?
It's time.
Time for what?
Time to know what happens when you reach the age of adolescence.
Age of what?
Is your stomach paining and you feel weird?
Yes.
An abundance of flowers and lush green growth fill the hills. Animals like snakes and rodents resurface from their holes and burrows. The children are amused by a shrew who blindly bowls around the room. Their grandmother calls the shrew Chuchundar and stops them from killing it. She says the Chuchundar brings good luck.
History is always associated with dates because there was a time when history was all about the accounts of kings and battles. It was about the various rulers and their policies, the year they married, big events of their lives, and the years they died in.
नोटबुक में आप सभी का पुनः स्वागत है.
Or any
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was a little bit about Notebook. It is now my privilege to introduce the wonderful panel that we have with us today. We are privileged to have with us Mrs. Renu Chakraborty, who is currently working as a principal in the AV and Vida school in Hyderabad. She's a highly talented, skilled, and dynamic educational leader with 20 years of experience in motivating learning environment and developing staff and students, which includes 6 years of experience as a vice principal and 3 years of experience as a principal. Prior to working in the AV and Vida school in Hyderabad, she has worked as the vice principal in a reputed CBSE school. Before that, she has worked at the Delhi School of Excellence, Hyderabad, the DRS International School, Hyderabad, NDPS, Indore, as a maths facilitator at St. Raphael School in Indore, and a maths facilitator at Columbia Convent School, also in Indore. She holds an MSc in Psychology, a B.Ed, an MSc in Applied Physics, besides a Bachelor of Science. Ma'am, thank you so much for sparing the time to be here today. We are privileged to have you on the panel. We also have with us Mr. Adesh Singh, who is currently the District Training Coordinator for Amroha from May 2020 at the COE of CBSE Dehradun region. He's also the principal currently of the Aaryans, Joya, from June 2015. Prior to this, he has worked at the Drone Public School in Sardana, the LRS Academy in Nagina, the Darshan Academy in Kaithal, and the Darshan Academy in Meerut. He's also worked at the Shatabdi Public School Meerut and the Rishabh Academy, also in Meerut. He has won numerous awards, to name a few: the Certificate of Appreciation by Lions Club International 2008, Srimati Sarla Chopra Rashtriya Sadbhavana Samman for invaluable contribution in spreading the spirit of solidarity by Avantika 2009. He was honored for imparting education based on human values and creating awareness for upliftment of Indian culture among youth by Honorable Mrs. Savitri Jindal, former Minister of Urban and Local Body, Government of Haryana during the year 2010, and was honored by the Bharat Vikas Parisad Kaithal under the program Guru Vandan Chatra Abhinandan 2010. Sir, thank you so much for being on the panel today. We are privileged to have you here. We also have with us Mrs. Anindita Banerjee, who is the principal of the Apeejay School in Salt Lake, Kolkata. She finished her schooling from South Point School in Kolkata and went on to do her graduation from St. Xavier's College and a post-graduation in mathematics from Jadavpur University. She had always wanted to be a teacher, as she feels teachers fill a complex set of roles which vary from one society to another and from one educational level to another. She went on to join the South Point School as a faculty member in 1987, before moving on to MP Birla Foundation School as the head of the Department of Maths in 1990, and finally joined the Apeejay School as vice principal in 2002. She currently has taken up the role of the principal. She has also been appointed as the head examiner and observer and resource person by CBSE on numerous occasions. She enjoys reading, traveling, and dance, and is a passionate educator who always likes to face new challenges. Ma'am, thank you so much for being on the platform today. We are privileged to have you with us. I shall start my video now and stop the share, and would request all the panelists to kindly do the same. Once again, a very good evening, and thank you so much for being here.
Very good evening, Shubhagya Roy sir. It was a wonderful introduction and a wonderful platform being used today for this. And nowadays, the topic which is, I think, it's a need of the hour, the topic which is being selected for this webinar, that is learning barrier. Like each one of us are feeling like how to bring up the reforms among our kids, because they are at home, they are not here with us. If they might be with us within the school, then definitely we can try. But trying at this point of time in current situation, we need not to go for managing only kids. We need to manage their parents. We need to manage our staff also. Means we need to manage the teachers too. Like all stakeholders to be managed. And it's really a Herculean task and tough task nowadays to work out and include everybody here in and bring everyone into the mainstream. Whatever the losses, like whether also somewhere we are being affected, right? So here at present, we need to work out in such a way that collectively we all have to work together. Being a society, all needs to be carried out together. This is my starting submission for this. Over to other panelists. Thank you.
Wonderful, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. If I may have a few questions that I can pose to you. Mrs.
Definitely,
Banerjee,
sir.
Yeah, Mrs. Banerjee, if I may start with you first.
Yes.
We have three panelists.
Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. You are
Yes,
audible.
yes.
Loud
Okay,
and
okay.
clear.
Okay.
Ma'am, my question is, in your opinion, what are the top obstacles that we have as a country to achieving 100% or near 100% enrollment?
Yes. Good evening, all of you. I think there are some external factors and as well as internal factors. External factors, we can say it's like a tight schedule, lack of available material. And, internal factors like emotions or the mindset, it's like a lack of infrastructure or faculty. Children have limited or no access to basic learning tools. It's also sometimes a poverty, as our other eminent persons, they have also mentioned. Challenging geographies, different climatic conditions. Mostly, I feel also the gender inequality, infrastructure, resources, maybe the quality, and the greatest barriers I feel is a lack of materials, lack of family income, child labor, and also the lack of quality education in school. These are the most, I think, these are the most barriers. And also there are some cultural and social elements which also cause learning, maybe we say, no access for the basic learning tools also.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That's quite a comprehensive list. But what I'm also trying to ascertain is, like ma'am said, there are internal factors and external factors. Mrs. Chakraborty, if I may come to you next.
I would like to throw some light on this. I would definitely like to throw some light on this. See, as we feel that education is a basic human right in most developed countries around the world, yet we feel that there are children who do not have the opportunity to learn, especially if they live in poverty. And being India, if you know about India also, if you know we are living in a country where poverty is the major factor. So definitely there are few factors which I would like to discuss here. We'll start with the first factor, which I feel is non-availability of teachers. When we say non-availability of teachers, it is not that the teachers are not available, but definitely teachers are not well trained, okay, in the direction in which they should take the classes, in the direction in which they have to go to the level of the students and teach them. Like suppose now we talk about the special education, we talk about the inclusive education. It is not everybody can teach all those type of students, right? So definitely we need to have trained teachers. Now, I'm sure everybody is into so many things, and everybody is related to a school which is a CBSE school. So if you see nowadays, CBSE is working a lot for training teachers. And the CBSE, especially during this 2 years pandemic, CBSE has conducted many online training sessions, free online training sessions for the teachers, and there are different timings. So according to your availability, definitely you can attend. Okay, so why they are doing it? Because they feel, yes, the teachers, it is not only when the teacher is going to the class, they have to complete that 40 minutes and just come out of the class. It is not like that at all. But most of the teachers, if you see, 70% of the teachers are just completing the work, what is allotted to them. 30% teachers may be definitely working out of the box. This is what the statistics also says. And we need to see that, yes, the teachers, availability of the teachers, when we talk about it, is availability of the trained teachers. Okay, so we need to definitely make sure that, yes, they are well trained. No harm in taking a teacher who is not experienced, who is not trained, but it is duty of the schools definitely to train them. Okay, so for this regard, I would definitely like to thank CBSE also. They are putting a lot of efforts for teachers, and definitely they are conducting n number of sessions on different topics, right? That is the first barrier which I feel, that yes, they are non-availability of teachers worldwide. If you see, and worldwide data also, if you see, 130 million, there are 130 million students who are not receiving the basic skills. Okay, so that data is very huge. And there's 69 million worldwide data. If you see, there are 69 million new teachers who are required to teach the primary and secondary level. Now, coming to the next barrier, what I feel, according to me, is that shortage of trained teachers, which we already discussed. So definitely training of the session is important. And we request all the schools to conduct n number of internal trainings can be conducted. You can definitely hire somebody from outside and you can do those trainings. It is not always that you need to go with a CBSE protocol only, or you need to hire somebody from outside. Definitely there are so many people in your organization also who are well trained, right? You are working as an HOD, definitely you can take your HOD, you can appoint your HOD for some kind of training sessions, and definitely we can go along with that. So definitely we need to see, yes, the training sessions need to be arranged. Next topic is shortage of classroom. When we talk about this factor, shortage of classroom, it is not that the classrooms are not there. There may be classrooms, but if you see, especially when you go to the remote areas and all, you feel that there are 40 to 50 students dumped in one classroom only. They don't have sitting place also properly. They're sitting on each other, or they're sitting here and there, and full 40 minutes or 1 hour when the period is going on, they're fighting for their places only. Okay. When you talk about the places, very good cities and places, so according to the CBSE, we can definitely take 40 students in per class. Okay, that is the data what CBSE says, that definitely you can have 40 students per class. When we take 40 students in a classroom, definitely it becomes very difficult for us to give what we are looking for. And it becomes very difficult for the students also to take what the teacher is trying to give them. 40-minute students and 40 minutes we have, one-to-one. It is very difficult, not even 1 minute for one student. So you can imagine that how the level of teaching will go. Okay, so definitely we need to work out on many factors over there. So especially when you go for this rural areas and all, the basic facilities like they don't have the toilets, they don't have water facilities is not there. Okay, so definitely all these are barriers according to me. Next barrier will be lack of learning materials. I would definitely like to elaborate all my points. So lack of learning material means you must have heard that when we go to these remote areas, and especially now also here, also in cities also, we do have people who don't have sufficient materials. Definitely during this online, during this 2 years of pandemic, we have definitely got a lot of resources, but that too online. Okay, you will not have resources for each and everybody, and you have distributed the resources to your place. No, it is not like the doorstep we have distributed the resources. Everybody will not have this digital access, right? So we do have a lot of material available online. That is for sure. That is true that we do have a lot of materials online. But if you talk about availability to all, when we talk about all means everybody, it is not available. Okay, there are people who don't have notebooks to write. There are people who don't have textbooks to read. They have to share, whether they go to the class or whether they are at home, they have to borrow the textbooks, right? There's a class, they have only one textbook and 12 students or 13 students are just seeing that particular textbook, and you can understand how the studies will go like that, right? So definitely we have a lack of learning materials. We do say that yes, a lot of learning resources are available in the online. That definitely that is very true. And now also if I say that if I want to learn anything, I want to learn foreign language, I don't need anybody. Definitely there are n number of resources available online and I can definitely learn. But everybody will not have access to online material. So there we need to understand that these are again the learning barriers. That is the reason we keep on telling in schools also that if you are done with your class, try to donate your books. Okay, try to donate your notebooks if you feel there are some empty pages. Don't just simply throw away your notebooks, right? So this is what we feel that yes, this is what life skill, and we have to teach all the students now and then. It is not like one day today in 1 year, we are taking a session with the students and teaching them like this. You definitely have to make them understand every time that whatever is not useful for you definitely will be useful for some other people. And if that kind of attitude is developed in the students, I'm sure wonders will come. The next barrier is challenges faced by children with learning disabilities. Slowly, I feel, yes, definitely the community have started accepting, because now it is compulsory from the CBSE also that you cannot deny any inclusive education. You have to take the admission if the child is a special child also. But days were there when I used to remember when I was also a teacher, we used to definitely keep on hearing that yes, there was a child who came for the admission and the child is a special child, and we did not give the admission. We denied the admission. Okay. So definitely there are challenges for inclusive education, because definitely the training is not there for all. Okay. Now again, when the training I'm talking about, it is not only for the teachers, it is for students also. We have to develop their understanding also, that if a child is taking admission in your class, how do you deal with those students? Okay, so these are the learning barriers. And the last and the most important barrier in education field, I feel, is the disadvantage by gender. Definitely there is a discrimination of gender also. There are places where they feel, I heard the first speaker talking about, Mr. Philip talking about the female candidates. Definitely the girl child is a curse. It is felt like that. And at many places they feel, okay, now I have 4 kids. So all the girls will work at home and the boy will go to the school. So that is again the discrimination factor over there. And still it is definitely, it is followed in many countries, many villages, many towns. Still it is followed. And because of that, all the early age marriages, okay, you can study only till grade 5 or grade 6 or grade 10, and then definitely you have to go for marriage. As again Mr. Philip said, because I was listening to his speech also, he very clearly said, and I do agree with that, yes, if we don't have money at home, so only the male person will go to the school. The female will stay at home because again she will help out in the household chores. Okay, so definitely if all these things we need to work on, it is very difficult task. And until unless we keep on talking about all these things and we keep on spreading the messages that it is not only the girl child, everybody is equal and everybody has the right to study and right to work. And it is not like that only the male or only the female can success. That comes automatically. Okay, so I think I have taken a lot of time from my side. So yeah, Mr. Roy, you can continue. Thank you so much for giving me this platform today. Yes, we'll go ahead.
The privilege is entirely ours, and that's the whole idea behind this, right? We want to have a dialogue, we want to have a conversation, we want the entire community to benefit from it. As you know, this is the 153rd episode, and we at the hosting end have been the greatest gainers because we get to learn from every session.
Correct, correct.
Mr. Singh, if I may come to you next, sir. We've had quite an exhaustive discussion on the number of barriers that you have, and if you want to add, please feel free to. But sir, I would specifically ask you about this point of poverty, because this keeps on coming up, right? Every time we talk about barriers in education, poverty is one of the highest ranking points. But we as a country have also created structures that can break that. The midday meal, the free compulsory education program, or even today when the finance minister says that we'll have multiple TV channels that are free to air, that will air content on education. So do you think that helps?
Definitely, Mr. Roy, it's going to help us out. Yesterday, I was just listening to our finance minister. She was very correctly mentioned that more than 200 channels they are going to launch for this purpose only in the coming time, right? And so far as at present scenario, if we look at presently also lot many channels in different languages being displayed. Like, so there, like in present scenario also, there are people, those who don't have even television at home, those who do not have television at home. For them, government already initiating lot many, like you just mentioned that under RTE, right to education, may the lot many admissions they are being given to the public schools also. It's a wonderful team effort. What I feel is the most important part from this whole discussion comes out is the willingness of doing that thing. Because if we are willing, then only we can move ahead. Like we know the people in nearby areas, they are not willing to send their kids for those primary schools. And I think presently, I'm from UP, in our state, the government is doing a tremendous job. The biggest and the largest infra being used here in UP, the biggest basic Shiksha department, right? They are working day and night, the trainings being given. Like the people used to go to a mohalla class they have introduced in this COVID pandemic, and they used to go there. But the thing is, the purpose is going to get solved when the child come and sit along with them. And like they study, we are reaching, we are ready to reach, right? But the thing is that willingness is required. For that, the parents needs to be educated about the importance of education, right? The people, those who like poverty, no doubt, is one of the very biggest factor. But apart from poverty, like I know that my fellow members are already sitting here. We know that in our schools, the people from different backgrounds used to come for admissions. Even from the very low background people also, they are willing, if those who are willing to get their child educationist, right? They're willing to educate their child, they are coming and they are admitting their child in public schools. So think of it, the government, when they are providing all free education to them, and they are providing fooding, they are giving money for dress, they are providing books, all free of cost. Like poverty somewhere is affecting, but up to an extent, I think that the willingness is required, and if they were willing to educate their child, and definitely the government and the society is ready to take it as it is, and we are really working on it. In fact, being a private schools, what could be done? One very simple one line statement: each one teach one. Let we give in our teachers and the students that responsibility, that from wherever, whatever the community they belongs to, if they belongs to any rural background, let the child adopt any one of the poor child and start teaching that child. Each one teach one. As you know, nowadays trends है कि हम birthday पर एक्सपेंसिव गिफ्ट ना करके एक प्लांट ग्रो करें, सीड एक प्लांट को प्लांट करें एंड देन अडॉप्ट दैट प्लांट. इन द सेम वे, अगर ईच चाइल्ड स्टार्ट अडॉप्टिंग एनी वन चाइल्ड एंड take care of the child only for maybe for 30 minutes, 45 minutes or an hour daily, then definitely I think all those barriers which are being placed could be broken. Together, collectively, with all willingness, definitely we could do that. That barrier is, I think the strongest barrier is that willingness, which I believe through various resources, if we may use social media platform, we may use our schools, we may use the society peoples to convey, to educate them. The education, not for the kids, for the parents, I think is much more important. They need to be educated that what is the importance of education, what they will be learning, isn't it? So that thing, what I believe is to be taken up. This is what I believe in this, sir.
Shubhayu, can I add on to this something
please.
Sir said, sir? Like in our school, sir, what sir has said, that each one teach one program, we have already started 5 years back, you know. There is in our vicinity.
Congratulations, ma'am. Wonderful work.
There is in our vicinity, there was a slum area, the children, we call those children, and you know, our students and teachers, they stay back after school hours and they used to teach those students, you know. And also we also include those children in our all school programs. Whatever program we do, this we also include those children in our school program. So they are also a part of our school children, you know. We don't feel, and whenever we have any occasions, you know, like Christmas celebration, we call for them and we celebrate along with our school students. So we really believe in that each one teach one program. Thanks, sir, for reminding me, because I want to also share these things with you all.
Welcome, ma'am. Actually, we all somewhere, sometime are into it, into the system. Only thing is we need to recapitulate the things and we need to bring it out. कहीं ना कहीं like एक time की जो dust है उसके नीचे कहीं रह गए हैं. We need to bring all those things out. If we remember ancient time में जो एक गुरुकुल culture हुआ करता था, if we talk about that culture, what was that? All students going to the Gurukul and they used to study for quite for longer period of time. And then एक दिन में I think for some time they need to go to the society people and they need to grab the things for their eatables, right? So like this, the things were there. We need to bring out our methodology. We need to study that and then convey it to the most important is we need to convey it to the stakeholders, that these people, the society people, उनको हमें मैसेज कन्वे करना होगा. वी नीड टू मेक देम अवेयर द इम्पोर्टेंस. आप एक प्रोवर्ब याद आ रहा है हिंदी में कि हालांकि सॉरी दिस इज नॉट अ गुड वन, अंधी बनाए और कोई खाए. समथिंग लाइक दैट, कि कोई बना रहा है, ले कोई और जा रहा है. तो वी नीड टू मेक देम अवेयर कि भैया आप एजुकेशन से आप अपने बच्चे को, यू नीड टू एजुकेट द चाइल्ड, ताकि वो अपना वर्क के रिवर्ट में जो उसको मिल रहा है कुछ जस्टिफाइड इट, राइट. इट शुड नॉट बी कि लेबर का पर्सन, इफ अ पर्सन इज अ लेबरर, तो उसके जो किड्स है वो भी लेबर ही होगा. नो, वी हैव गॉट लॉट मेनी एग्जांपल्स कि एक पीपल वेरी रूरल बैकग्राउंड से द डॉटर बिकम्स IAS, right. The child come with a flying colors, like is such a wonderful one. Like this, number of examples are there, right. So the thing is, make the people aware by managing show like this. As we are talking like this, we need to have some more programs, and then those programs could be shared with the people in the society, maybe with our teachers, then through teachers, through students, because we alone, like one person can we may have the limits, but our students, our parents, our stakeholders, they are limitless. Like 1 to suppose 1,000 students are there, maybe 1,000 students are there in a school, so 1,000 multiply ho gaya, 1 into 1,000, then 1,000 again multiply. So like this, when we start educating the people, then definitely these learning barriers may comes to an end, or right. So then one more topic was there, that is related to the inclusive culture.
Inclusive culture, yes.
For this, with the permission of the organizer, I would like to share 2-3 pics. I'm sharing my screen with the people, and look at this. Is my screen is visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
Fine. Building an inclusive culture ke liye, when we were talking about what is it, not many people think of it, what actually the inclusion is, right. The next slide will definitely make the things little clear. I'll not say that quite clear. Look at that. Exclusion, like people collected together and all exclusion took place, right. The people are outside, then we become little smart. ठीक है, segregation करके, if you remember this segregation, the government have like we might have heard कि some specially challenged students के लिए, kids के लिए separate schools being created. हमारी सोसाइटी में है कुछ schools जो separately they are being governed for those challenging kids. That is what the segregation is. Integration, segregation को we have included in our school, but even then they are not a part of the mainstream. Inclusion will clearly indicated in the last part of this slide, like the 4th point chamber, that this is actually the inclusion. Like along with the mainstream, let we take those kids and then start working on it. This is what. So inclusion means non-discrimination, diversity, equality, access for everyone, opportunities to be given to everyone, participation for each one of them, acceptance, accept them and provide them social justice. So this is what is this. The next picture is a presentation of each one of us, like how to help them. This one, equality versus equity. The 3 people, look at, they all were trying to watch inside the stadium. Then the first part of the picture. The second part, the longer one has got down, shared the stool with the one and bring one slope for the third one. So all 3 are watching. This is what equality versus equity. So this type of culture we need to develop within. So for inclusive education, we need to be the flexible content. We need multi-level activities, collaborative practices, cooperative learning and conducive social environment. This is what I wanted to add through this presentation only. Okay. So this is what little which I'm able to figure out for this inclusive education, because generally this inclusive education, the concept with the people is not clear. What does inclusive means? Inclusive means bring all the people together and in mainstream. So let me work in such a way. So this is what the building inclusive culture by bringing everybody into the mainstream, and definitely our teachers to be trained. Our teachers to be trained to have patience. Teaching, but they are definitely doing. What I feel that while dealing with such a class of maybe the 40 people class or 80 people class, right, the patience needs to be learned by the teachers, because if they lose, then definitely the problem will take place. Though CBSE, if we talk about CBSE, they are confining it to 40, and a few people used to discuss on it. This is the ideal strength. Again, going back to my first point, that willingness. Quoting an example, sir, in school, sitting and studying in 35 and 40 class students, we feel that it is comfortable. The same students, when go to the coaching center, more than 80 students are studying, and they all are studying and they all are focusing on it. What about that? Only thing is willingness, willingness, and willingness. If we are willing to do something, then nothing is achievable. So we must educate, we must convey our messages to the people. I think that's all from my side. If I have got any question related to it, I'm open.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. In fact, thank you for starting this conversation about inclusion, because this is a question that I have for both Mrs. Banerjee and Mrs. Chakraborty. As sir said, there is inclusion and then there is integration. Now, while we have been talking about CWSN for the last few years, and CBSE exam now has a separate setup for the CWSN, but do you think that our school system at large, CBSE has 27,000 plus schools, and globally, if I'm talking about the other state boards, etc., in India, that's a massive number. Do you think special needs students are integrated, or are they really included in our system? Mrs. Banerjee?
I would like to just throw some light over here. Yes, if you talk about CBSE schools, it is mandatory for all CBSE schools to provide inclusive education. That is for sure. But if you ask that how many schools are actually providing, yes, the data is very low. Okay?
Absolutely right.
It is, yes, the data is very less, because it is not only providing special education students the facilities, it talks about n number of things. It talks about the resources available, whether the schools have the resources available with them or not. Suppose if we talk about a special students who is not able to walk properly, so do we have ramp in all the schools? You have given some data about CBSE schools in India. Definitely, if we try to figure out how many schools do provide you ramp facilities, definitely I'm sure the data will be very less. So we do say that, yes, we are taking care of special students, and we do have inclusive educations in the schools, and we do have a counselor, and we do have a special educator in the school. But do we think that, yes, really they are doing the job which they are supposed to do? No, they are not, because again, the availability of the resources is not there. So we first need to check whether all the resources are available to them or not. Now we talk about a special child where we need that, yes, the vision is very less. Okay, so definitely we need other kind of resources for them to study. Do we have those resources? Maybe if I don't have resources in my school, maybe I will deny the admission. Okay, so that is what the schools are doing it. So availability of resources is first important factor which we have to definitely look out.
Yes, sir.
Anindita ma'am was saying something. Yeah, ma'am, please.
As ma'am said, yes, she will be denying the admission. But in our school, now presently I'm having 95 students for special education. Okay, we have 3 special educators. We are actually, if you know, in Kolkata, Apeejay school is a name for special education. We believe in inclusion. What we do, we try to include them in a mainstream system. Though they are taking classes, they are in the part of the classroom, but special educator, ma'am, they usually take time to teach them. We want to try for the free learning, free learning system. Like we give them extra time, we have provide extra, worksheets. And for till class 5, 6, we give them a modified syllabus. Though from class 9 and 10, CBSE is not allowing modified syllabus. But, till class 7, we wanted to give them a modified syllabus. And what we are planning that we are having each child, we are creating a roadmap, right? Once they take the admission, we give them a roadmap. We try out till class 5 and 6. And if we see that they are not able to cope up, we are tying up with NIOS board and we give them that curriculum so that the child will be also helpful. And they can also continue with our school with the NIOS system. So basically we are trying hard in inclusion.
Yes.
I know it's very, very difficult, but still we are trying very hard.
Correct. As ma'am said, that yes, they do have 3 types of special educators and they do have so many facilities. But my question is only that, as Mr. Roy was asking, that actually are we following or not? It is not like I am denying admission to a special student, but there are schools. There are schools who will deny the admission because of the unavailability of the resources. So
right.
this is definitely, if you see the data and if we say roughly we have 100 CBSE schools, I'm sure only 20 schools must be providing this. Other than 20 schools, all those 80 schools which are there, I'm sure they will not be able to do a proper job, which we are supposed to do. Again, it is not, they don't have the resources. Again, everything comes back to the money factor. Maybe again, we don't have the, if we don't have proper aids given to us, okay? So there are a number of factors behind that. It is not only the resources. You need to have the resources. Maybe we don't have the proper, the area is not there. The school area is very small. The classrooms are not there. Infrastructure doesn't support all those things. So you need to see there are a number of factors. If I want to create a ramp also, where do I do it? It is an old building. Again, I need to reconstruct the building. Again, I have to plan again for that. Again, money is required for all those things. So there are a number of factors involved in taking any kind of decision. Especially here, it becomes very difficult, very challenging for us to come out of that comfort zone and do something. So definitely there are schools, maybe upcoming schools, or there are schools who have definitely funds are there, infrastructure is there. Definitely they are trying to do the best. And again, that mentality is required. That thinking is required, which is very important. The person who is holding the chair needs to have that kind of mentality, that kind of thinking that, yes, I wanted a change and definitely I will be able to do it. So that is what Mr. Roy, I feel, yes, is missing in India, where slowly we are doing it. Definitely we all are trying our best. And as ma'am said,
one more thing I also want to add on, that
yes,
our new national education policy, I believe if we go through the framework, what we can also see, they are also mainly focusing on the objective of inclusions. I believe, I think the national, we all have.
In fact, if we see that CBSE now is organizing so many trainings, also sessions for teachers, also for special education and the inclusive education. Definitely, we all are working very hard. The CBSE is also taking a call to train the teachers, to make them understand why it is important, what are the things required for it. As Anindita ma'am spoke, that yes, they do have a plan for creating different type of worksheets. And now if you see that CBSE has created this hubs of learning also. The reason behind this hubs of learning is also that at least we share. Maybe I don't have an idea, but again, if ma'am has some idea, if she's sharing her idea with us, definitely we try to then come out with something better plan. So this is what the reason the CBSE has created this hubs of learning also, that if you have 5 to 6 schools nearby, it is competition stands separately, but yes, working for all stands separately. So if we all come together and share our ideas and try to bring up something which is good for the students, for the community, we should definitely do it. Okay.
Definitely, ma'am. Definitely, ma'am. Here, one question comes in mind after listening this all discussion. How many CBSE affiliated school? 22,000? Is this country contain 22, like nearby 21 to 22,000 schools? Is this entire country contains only 21 to 22,000 schools? I don't think so. They are in lakhs. Whenever we talk about any inclusive education, whenever we talk about any learning barrier, why we kept away those government people? We are ready because we have got affiliation from CBSE. We are already abiding all the rules and regulations. We have to appoint a special educator. We have to appoint all the things. We are ready with it. So why don't we include, like, all collectively should move, then only the reforms will take place. We cannot make them exempted from it. Why we only CBSE schools are doing this? Why not the government schools are also using the
Not the
inclusive
state board
education?
schools and
They
all.
also supposed to
We are
be
not
trained.
doing it, huh?
They also supposed to be trained, and their teachers also supposed to be have patience, like the teachers in our schools. I can say, like the CBSE school teachers, hats off to them that in this COVID pandemic, the online classes which they have never seen, within quick time, within 30 days time, every school launches that that online classes. Every school online classes being done. So that is what the private schools, that CBSE schools are doing it. Government schools, they are into it. They are doing it. Their willingness, their working culture also needs to be of the same caliber. They also needs to work out for that. So here in UP, I know that the basic department of education and the medium and this inter colleges, the training being started from last 1 year, 1.5 year. I'm watching, I'm in touch with the people. They are giving massive trainings, but now they have started the trainings which we as a CBSE schools we used to do almost from years. We are doing it. From years we are doing this kind of training and all things we are doing. And like 2 years back, that hubs of learning being introduced, rightly said by Renu Chakraborty ma'am, that hubs of learning, a wonderful project where the lead collaborators collectively along with the school members sharing the ideas and going to the society with the best practices. We are going to the society for the best practices. So same we are expecting that all collectively hum sab ek saath chalenge. So definitely we'll do.
Very
ekla chalo nahi.
Very true.
Very
एकला
true. Very
चलो
true.
नहीं.
Very true.
सबका साथ, सबका विकास, हमारा प्रयास.
Correct.
Absolutely,
Right?
sir.
हमारा
Absolutely.
प्रयास, सबका
I
साथ,
feel I would
सबका
like
विकास.
to add one more thing for Adesh
Please.
Singh, sir. Whatever
Sure.
you have said, yes, definitely we have to do that, and I feel for that we need to arrange lot of campaigns.
Yeah.
We definitely need to do a lot of campaigns. Maybe the students can go from one place to another place and can do a lot of campaigning. So maybe we can reach to people like that.
Definitely, ma'am. Definitely. Those campaigns, vigorously, those campaigns are
Correct.
required to be launched, and so that we can reach to the ground reality, जो bottom तक एक होता है ना कि
Correct. Yes.
घर पर वाटर टैंक है, उसकी सफाई करनी है तो
Correct.
पूरा पानी निकालकर जमीन तक
Correct.
सफाई करनी होती है उसकी. So
Very
that
true.
ground reality पर work करना होगा, और then
Correct.
only we can bring reforms. जब हम एक आखिरी टच तक पहुंच पाएंगे. एक फार्मर्स के पास में एक इंफॉर्मेशन होती है कि आज पानी छूटेगा उस रिवर से, तो जो इरिगेशन डिपार्टमेंट है वो मेक श्योर करता है कि टिल लास्ट पॉइंट ऑफ द रिवर द वाटर शुड फ्लो, right? So same amount of water, so same amount of efforts are required. Being an educator, we need to bring those reforms so that वो जो एक बच्चा भी ना छूटे. वो एक पोलियो का जैसे चला था ना कि एक भी बच्चा नहीं छूटे, पोलियो का जो वैक्सीनेशन का चला था, सेम अभी वैक्सीनेशन कोविड का चल रहा है. इन द सेम वे वी नीड टू ब्रिंग सर्टेन रिफॉर्म्स.
Retention, we believe in retention.
Right. So that thing to be made, और उसके लिए हमें कंटिन्यूअस प्रयास करने होंगे. Never ever give up. Yes. Isn't it?
Well said, sir.
Sir, Roy sir, over to you.
Thank you so much, sir, and thank you all three of you for this wonderful discussion. Unfortunately, we are absolutely out of time, but as I said, learning barriers is such a vast topic that we could perhaps be discussing this throughout the night.
And we'll add time barrier also.
Barrier as well. Very true, sir.
Right. So I hope this is all.
Yes, I'll just do the quick thank yous. First of all, Barrett sir, thank you so much for being here today. I think your introduction was wonderful. And we always stand to benefit from those 4 decades plus of experience that you bring to the forum. Thank you so much, sir. Adesh sir, thank you so much for being here. I think you had some wonderful additions Sir, your enthusiasm for change and for improvement is something I'm sure is infectious and will affect each and every one of us who is watching you today. Ms. Banerjee,
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Actually, since morning एक CBSE का pedagogical leadership पर training चल रहा था, वहाँ से busy थे. 4:45 पर वो over हुआ और 4:55 पर आपने पकड़ लिया.
You have done it today, but we have done it earlier. Pedagogical
Ma'am, I was working there as a resource person.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Right. So
Thank
this is
you
my this is my 4th batch, which I was training today. Right. Tomorrow in continuation, we will be having another actual APP we will be preparing.
Okay, sir. Okay,
Right.
sir. Thank you.
Right, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Especially after a busy day doing this for us, we are really in your debt.
Sir, not for us, for society, for the people who are in need. That's why I say yes. Otherwise, there's no chance कि कोई भी कुछ भी हो जाए. नहीं, not possible. एक topic ऐसा आपका alarming था, which make me to say immediate yes to ma'am. When ma'am called me and say कि on this learning barrier, I love that. I love this topic. Definitely say yes. No issue at all.
Thank you so much. Mr. Banerjee, thank you so much for sharing the wonderful stuff that you're doing at Apeejay School. I have grown up in Kolkata, so very, very aware of how Apeejay School is synonymous to a lot of inclusion across various different vectors. And thank you so much for sharing that with the platform today, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Chakraborty, once again, thank you so much for being here today. I think your articulation of how things do not need to change just quantitatively, but more importantly, qualitatively. And that the intent has to be there, the right kind of quality in whatever we are delivering has to be there. I think was a very valid point. Thank you so much for that, ma'am.
Thank you.
To everybody who are here today, I think we had a wonderful, wonderful session. And thank you so much for being a part of this. A couple of things to remind you of before we part ways, because we had a lot of discussion about teachers training and resources for teachers training. Please remember the Together for Education webinars. After each webinar, we upload the video of this onto our YouTube channel, the Notebook YouTube channel. So if ever you feel like there is a particular topic pertaining to education that you might want to hear what others are saying on, please visit our YouTube channel and you would find all the 150 plus episodes over there. We have done quite a fair bit of topics, and I think we would be able to add some value. If you can share this learning within the community, that would be a huge, huge gain for us. Once again, thank you so much for being here today. We wish you a great time ahead. Until next time, please take care, stay safe, and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.